We had a really nice deep rain yesterday. I was hoping for it. We had been working up some soil and getting things seeded, and it was just what we needed. The ground is now cooler and a little bit more moist. It's a great day to start doing some planting. Yesterday I was up in Trumansburg and I took a visit to Countryside and visited my friend Daniel. It's an Amish-run outfit. I have a relationship with him where I scoop up older flats of seedlings, annual seedlings that haven't sold, and either buy them or trade them for perennial nursery stock. He's slowly adding in currants and willow and elderberry, and it's really exciting to have that exchange. And I'm left with annuals that I would never be able to do with our setup. They have a heated greenhouse, they have lots of folks working, and so we got all these leftover peppers and tomatoes, super leggy tomatoes, but that's fine, we can field plant them. And then we also have lots of our own things going on in here, little hot peppers that we care for and varieties of tomato that Sasha really loves. You can see how much smaller they are when you don't start them with a heated space. Little tomatoes versus greenhouse tomatoes. But that's the beauty of working with other folks. So today I'm going to start loading a bunch of these onto the trailer with our little electric truck, the car with the trailer attached. This has been working wonderfully. I'll share a link here if you're interested in learning more, but we've been hauling extensive amounts, truckloads worth of material. In fact, I got a big load of compost for the chickens yesterday, and they're happy with that, so they're happy with this investment too. I'll load on today and prioritize the absolute biggest plants. I gave them a deep hydrating soak in a very informal compost tea bath. That's that right there. It's rainwater with handfuls of compost stirred together, letting the seedlings sit in there for a minute or two to really take on deep hydration, but also like a nourishing soak. And we've got hot peppers and sweet peppers. The lettuces will go in at our home in our backyard zone 1, but the peppers and tomatoes, the eggplants will go out to the field. That's next once I load up. Nice project for the morning to start getting these in. I'm going to bring some water and compost and a couple of tools and get out to the field. We've been using this very simple system for getting water for the field for a couple of years now, and it works fine enough. There's a Chinese food place not far from here that uses fryer oil. We get the containers out of the recycling. We rinse them as thoroughly as we can, dilute them over time. It's fine enough, whatever. And then we use our rainwater tanks once we get a good rain, and there's enough in there. We refill from here, put the lids on, throw them in a vehicle, and then this way we can walk around and give a gallon or two of water to each plant. It is manual, but it's free and it's an abundant resource. It's wild sometimes how much prep work it takes just to get started. So it's now 8 a.m. and I finally have the trailer ready to go. We've got our plants, we got some water, and we got a bunch of compost. We got some shovels, and I've got this cool drill auger bit that attaches to my drill. I'll show in a moment. It's just funny, it feels like a small amount of a full day's work already, and I'm now finally ready to get started planting. And here we are right down the road. Nice thing with the electric car and a decently tightly mowed field is we can pull up right to where we're going to work. Boy, this is a video for another time. I'd like to do a more detailed tour. We got potatoes and amaranth and winter squash and sunflowers and more tomatoes and cabbages and sweet potatoes and cabbages and cauliflower, sea buckthorn cuttings, onions all throughout, lots and lots of stuff. That'd be for another time. But for now, what I want to do is identify beds that did not get addressed very well or thoroughly this spring. So for example, this one, we just took an electric mower with a bagger and mowed this down. I'm going to use a drill to drill holes periodically and start with eggplant in here. So I just have a standard drill, nice quality Makita. That's what I work with, so that's what I'm using. And I found this online. If I can find a link, I'll share it. It's, I think, a 3-inch diameter ground auger that has a chuck that matches the drill. I certainly don't need the full depth that this offers, but it's got a little leading tip and it cuts decently well in the soil. The one real gotcha is if it's not on the right side of your correct side of your body when you're using this and you hit a rock, you can absolutely break a wrist. I've come close a few times, so I'm gonna set up a tripod and show how I do this. If I just put this in the ground and start drilling and it hits a rock, it spins really fast. It spins in this direction for me, so I put it so that it's up against my hip, and then it works pretty nicely. Wrong setting, it should be on a little slower. It can get gummed up if you got lots of debris in the soil. Oop, see, gotta be careful. In rocky soil that's dense, that you're doing your first cuts in, you really, if you have issues with your wrists or your arms, or you don't feel like you have the control strength, this is not the right tool. I feel like I'm understanding it and I'm still getting zapped periodically. But what's nice about it is it really creates a nice little pocket you can drop a plug into. And then what we can do is focus on deep mulch deposition around these, lots of compost, maybe some cardboard if needed, but it is a very fast no-till way to inject plants so long as they're big enough. I wouldn't do this and then sow some lettuce seed or carrots, but for plugs that are well established that I can bank compost and mulch around, it's a fast way to go down through a bed and drill out the holes. Eggplant ready to go, and so I can tuck it in, and these are solanaceous crops, so I can let the soil go up the stem just a little bit. I recognize this would be very easy for the weeds to completely take over if this is the only move, but if I'm following up with some really good compost around the plant to boost them, and then really thick deposition of grasses around and on top of the weeds, that can transition this if things work properly. It's about 15 minutes worth of work to use that little drill. A little wild of a tool, so again, not recommended if you're not feeling really comfortable with it. Go light, and if it's stony soil, question whether it's an appropriate tool. Basically, these are now these plugs that have been injected into the ground, recognizing fully that this is not a good solution if I just leave it like, hey, let's just come back and get eggplants. But we plan on working up the soil in between the row of the eggplant and the sweet potato. That soil could be used to bank up against the stems of the eggplant to strengthen them, or to dump deeply on top of weeds. I have a weed whacker that's pretty accurate if I'm careful with it, and I can do detailed work around these. We also have a couple round bales of hay off in the distance and bedding from the chickens. So with all of those ingredients in that management, the idea of continually building soil, adding to these permanent raised beds, robbing from the walkways, that pathway feels like a valid and viable way to have these eggplants be able to pop through the weeds. We'll share notes as that unfolds. This next bed to work on, these are all running east-west, and the center of this bed had figs and pomegranate cuttings that I don't think are working really well. The south side have a nice block of onions on one end, but nothing in the middle. There's some gappiness in here, and so I'm using the drill on the north side just in case the figs and the pomegranates want to root and grow. I don't want to erase them. There's also sea berry cuttings that are rooted here from last year, so I want to work around that. But these are all small red peppers. I haven't worked with these before, but Sasha really likes red peppers, and it feels like smaller ones have a better chance of being able to grow without getting a little blemish and then rotting. And so it'd be more numerous small red peppers, putting in about 80 of them, so hopefully we like them. A couple of sweet observations happening here. One thing, so to the north of this bed is a potato bed. These are a dark purple potato that we've been saving for years and years. We've got them in a two-row zigzag pattern in one monolithic bed, and I'm using the BCS rotary plow to cut sod to feed these potatoes. We're hilling them by robbing these walkways. So this will be cut and sent to the potatoes. And they're such a hungry, fast annual once they're up that it becomes a destination as I'm clearing out these little pockets to put in the peppers, a little bit more particular pepper pockets, as they say. The weeds that come out of here can go directly into and next to the potatoes. They'll just gobble them up once there's soil on top. So potato beds throughout gardens act as these amazing kind of like compost catches, compost piles that you can throw anything at, and then throw some soil on top and the potatoes will grow right through it. Nice to see the center of this bed, in a few spots, some hazelnuts. We just ran out of bandwidth in planting them in air prune boxes, so we put a bunch of hazelnuts into the middle of this bed with some soil on top and some compost. Some areas are stronger than others. Kind of thought voles might get them, but it seems like at least some are here. And with these little cells, it's not normally how I do it, but I like the idea. I can put these 4-packs down the line and pre-flight them and then just drop them in. It's almost like a production farm scene here with waste stream from an Amish nursery in the pursuit of building soil. Works out pretty nice. Another sweet side bonus of this micro-tillage regime is lots of little bird friends come to hang out. They know the bobolinks in particular. When we work up the soil with the BCS or with these little drills, we give a little space and they bop through and try to get some worms out of the mix. It works out lovely. Ended up with a nice 50 or 60 foot row of peppers through here. Plopped in 15-20 minutes with that drill, minding my wrist of course, and left with a few extras we can give away to some friends. Nice straight clean row that works out well. It's not like I love straight rows, but if I'm doing things like rotary plow to harvest and hill potatoes, it really facilitates having the straightness. The person who owns this land appreciates and enjoys good clean straight lines, and I'm really happy to lean into that. Side question here for those of you that are proficient pepper professional planters. What do you think with these flowers that are popping off? Do I pinch right below here and let them get bushy? Do I let them just start setting up a crop? The soil conditions seem really nice for them to get established. It's moist, it's warm, there's some more rains coming. So there shouldn't be major stresses on the plants, but would it be helpful to head them back? Maybe I'll do an experiment and do half. Let me know in the comments. This is the next bed. I've got 16 cayenne peppers to put in. They're a little bit of a bigger container, so these are ones I'm going to save the tags and wash the containers and return them. They can reuse these, and it feels pretty important. It's a lot of plastic otherwise, but there's 16 of them, and the bed's complex, so I went through with the sharpened shovel and dug some pilot holes every 2 feet or so in and amongst the seaberry and the English walnut, and we'll tuck them in so that seaberry and walnut can do a second year of nursery crop, and we can get hot peppers in the meantime, hopefully. It'll be exciting to see how this bed unfolds with hot peppers on the south and then indeterminate tomatoes on the north. I know it's a little close, but I think I can feed the tomatoes really heavily. I think I'll go less intense feeding on the peppers. Some observations to learn from: will the seaberry plants confer a little bit of a nitrogen boost to them? Will the English walnuts be a little antagonistic since they are juglans family? Get to learn some things there. And I'll pound in stakes and run these tomatoes pretty tight and well maintained onto the wire, so there's ample room for the peppers to grow and lean south. They'll block some light over the walkway, that's okay, and then these cuttings we don't have to interact with much. So hopefully this cropping regime works out. Lots of interaction, minimal with these cabbages that are planted right into stubble of old Sudan, and then high intensity tomato and pepper with nursery in the middle. Boy, it's a lot to figure out. For an hour and a half of work, I'm about halfway through these, and I think having a field that's already thoughtfully laid out, having a sense of where things are going to go, having a good sharpened shovel. This is the shovel I'm using in rocky clay soil. I really like taking a standard shovel, using an angle grinder and cutting it to this profile. Really lets you get in. You can even hit that with a file at the end to sharpen, which I should have done, and then you can use it to skim weeds out. But that, and then the drill for the smaller plugs that are ready to go, it really facilitates. Feels like I'm learning how to farm in a real way here. I think where the drill really excels is when there's loose soil that's relatively rock free and you're trying to plant, in particular, tomatoes. These are some leggy lemon boys. I've never worked with them before, but they seem compelling. Nice yellow indeterminate tomato, and these deep holes let you drop the whole plug in. See, I can drop it in. Could even go deeper than that, quite a bit in fact. But that lets the stem of the tomato root up a little bit and get stronger. But we'll pound in trellis, probably metal T-posts, and run good quality string every foot or two down the whole line to trellis them. Turns to potatoes here, so weeding can be sent to this bed and weed management can be done with a little micro-tilling, tilthing and hilling for both the tomatoes and the potatoes. Hopefully with good enough health in the soil, a good abundant sun and wind growing season, the spacing here would be compatible to not have disease build up. We'll see. A little less than amazingly satisfying to look in the back of the trailer and say, oh, there's still some stuff in here. But the reality is my back is telling me, hey man, you got to take a little break. It's a Sunday, so that's it. I'm going to get that amount done. The water, a couple waters left on there. The compost is spread out, but a lot of plants went in, probably about 70 or 80%, and that's fine enough. Got a half row of Lemon Boy tomatoes to the north of a nursery bed that has hazelnuts and cuttings in the center and onions on the south. Got a whole bunch of smaller red peppers, half of the bed mulched with deep, rich compost, half left with the soil as it is, so we can see if the peppers respond nicely. I'd love to hear notes from folks. Peppers, do you feed them thoroughly? I kind of feel like I understand that they want less intense nutrient, and then they fruit and flower more rather than vegetation. Share notes, let me know. We got some Hungarian yellow wax peppers, lots of solanaceous stuff happening in this field. So I really have to keep my eye on keeping things clean and organized, not having like plants flopping on each other or choking each other out. I think with the amount of sun and openness in this field, we should be able to avoid disease, but it'll be on our quality of cultivation that dictates that. I'll do a more thorough update on what's happening in all these fields when the time allows, but for now I'm going to head back home and check in with Sasha and little Zeldini and maybe have some breakfast. And that's it. So middle field, lots more to do over there, lots of potatoes happening. Garlic is looking beautiful. Really excited to see how the rest of this season unfolds in this landscape, and we'll share as it goes. Thanks for watching.